Sweden's welcoming immigration policy has completely changed its society. Sweden is in the middle of a deadly human crisis, one of its own making. You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden, who would believe this? Donald Trump in 2017. In this video, we'll be looking at the impact of the immigration crisis on Sweden and its neighboring countries. We'll also be looking at the government's plan to solve this problem. Let's dive in. Sweden has always been a popular destination for immigrants due to its progressive politics and strong social safety net. The land of Vikings has always had comparatively low immigration rates. Unfortunately, guest worker programs were created in response to the post-World War II labor crisis, drawing people from Finland, Yugoslavia, and eventually Turkey. Family reunion laws brought spouses and kids by the 1990s, strengthening immigrant communities. Asylum seekers were a greater number in the 2000s, especially during the Syrian crisis, greatly varying the demographic. As per Statistics Sweden, the population currently comprises roughly 20% of persons who were born outside of Sweden, with the most significant groups originating from Syria, Finland, Iraq, and Poland. Sweden's customarily accommodating stance came under doubt during the European migration crisis of 2015. Now, despite having the greatest rate of asylum seekers per person in the EU, worries about social unity and integration increased. Asylum laws were strengthened by subsequent policy changes, which mirrored a wider European trend. However, Sweden continues to be a pioneer in the resettlement of refugees, having resettled 3,490 people in 2022. The economic impact of immigration is a difficult subject. On the one hand, immigrants help the labor market by bridging skill gaps in industries like healthcare and construction. According to the 2021 research conducted by the Swedish National Labor Market Board, about 50% of newly hired workers are immigrants. Nonetheless, difficulties still exist, as seen by the greater unemployment rates among some immigrant populations, which emphasizes the necessity of improved language and integration assistance. Economic inequality, climate change, and geopolitical unrest will probably continue to be the main causes of migration worldwide. Sweden's immigration policy is a topic of constant debate as the country struggles with an aging population and a workforce deficit. It'll be critical to strike a balance between luring in skilled immigrants, facilitating their smooth integration, and attending to public concerns. The much-praised reputation of Sweden as a refugee-friendly country is changing. With the support of the Sweden Democrats, the newly formed government is indicating a clear change in strategy. The conference by Henrik Winge, the deputy party leader of the far-right SD, and Maria Malmer Stenegard, Minister for Migration and Asylum Policy, in late January 2023, marked a turning point. Collectively, they declared a campaign to deter immigration to Sweden. Nationalist anti-immigration parties are becoming more popular throughout Europe. The Danish People's Party shows this movement, along with the Freedom Party in Austria, the True Finns in Finland, and so on. These parties are receiving more and more invitations to negotiate coalitions and occasionally even take on positions of government. Governments that supported migrant groups and provided language instruction throughout the post-war era encouraged integration. In 1975, a historic policy shift gave immigrants who had been living in Sweden for more than 3 years the ability to vote and run for local government. This action mirrored the larger emphasis on support for integration and equitable treatment. The trend of anti-immigration in Sweden is linear, and according to many observers, started in the aftermath of the Arab Spring, when massive upheavals in the Middle East and North Africa, starting in 2011, led to a record number of migrants and refugees fleeing to Europe, with a peak in 2015 to 2016. Sweden is the only nation that has accepted more refugees relative to its entire population. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees released a chart in 2018 that included Sweden among the nations having the greatest proportion of refugees worldwide, along with Sudan, Turkey, Malta, and Lebanon. As we move on, we'll be looking at how the number of immigrants in Sweden has reportedly increased gang-related conflicts and gun violence in the country. But before we do, subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to like this video as well. Many individuals linked immigration to crime following an increase in gang-related violence in several areas of Sweden in April 2022. Sweden has the unfortunate reputation of being the country in Europe with the greatest rate of gangland killings. With kids in their early teens getting arrested for murder, it has the lowest average age of grave offenders. More and more suburbs are officially classed as especially vulnerable areas, where it's hard, bordering on impossible, for police to function. Put simply, these are no-go areas governed by the local clans, in which first responders are only allowed if police accompany them and they have flak jackets on. As gang violence extends outside of its boundaries, raising fears among its neighbors about the possibility of a similar fate, dubbed the Swedish condition in Denmark, Sweden is transformed from an inspirational example to a cautionary tale. The Swedish government has broken a long-standing taboo by enlisting military assistance for law enforcement. The severity of increasing number of shootings and explosions seriously threatens the country's continued economic progress. In addition to forcing able Swedish nationals to leave their homeland, the decline in physical security makes it difficult for businesses to attract the best foreign employees. Sweden's declining trend in the Program for International Student Assessment rankings is indicative of the deterioration of educational quality, which is made worse by an increase in ethnic tensions and school violence. For a knowledge-based country, this is a serious problem, and the central bank is one of the many organizations sounding the alarm. There have been more and more warning signs, which has caused the political arena to move from denial to recognition. The absence of a local integration program in conjunction with an open-door migration strategy is a primary source of the issue. As a result, immigrant-dominated areas have sprung up, marked by high rates of unemployment and schools where neither instructors nor pupils speak Swedish fluently. Due to these circumstances, criminal activity has flourished, with gangs taking advantage of social weaknesses. Over the past 20 years, the number of foreign-born inhabitants in Sweden has dramatically increased. 2.14 million of the 10.61 million people living in 2022 were officially classified as foreign-born, more than double the number from 2000. This represents slightly more than 20% of the total population. The percentage increases to 26, taking into account those who were born in Sweden to two parents who were born abroad. For demographic considerations, the proportion of foreign-born inhabitants is expected to rise, even in the unlikely event that the government decides to stop accepting new immigrants fully. Currently, 33% of inhabitants between the ages of 25 and 34 are foreign-born, while 38% of people between the ages of 35 and 45 are foreign-born. By September 2022, the break with Sweden's ancient history was almost complete, as shown by riots in a number of Swedish cities and the then Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson's admission that her country had failed to integrate a sizable percentage of its immigrants. In the general elections, the far-right SD, which opposes immigration, received 20% of the vote. In exchange for the SD support in parliament, the administration, which was composed of Christian Democrats, liberals, and center-right moderates, created a three-party coalition and asked the SD to participate in the development of their policy. The 63-page Tudo Agreement, which devoted a third of its text to migration, assured the SD a significant position in national governance. Sweden has extended assistance to developing nations, those in Latin America, the Caribbean, and Asia, since the 1960s. The changes in Sweden are the outcome of both internal issues and a wider pan-European trend. Maybe the most divided nation in all of Europe is Sweden. Everyone can see that the white Swedish population does not reside in the same region as the immigrants in cities like Göteborg, Malmö, and Stockholm. The Ministry for Migration will collaborate with Swedish embassies overseas to disseminate information about its tightening stance in an effort to deter prospective asylum seekers from traveling to Sweden. Among other things, the present administration was elected with a promise of bringing about a paradigm shift in immigration policy. This calls for several significant adjustments. People are generally well informed, which is one of the reasons that 163,000 people journeyed across Europe in 2015 to the northern, chilly country of Sweden. They did so because they were aware of the more lenient rules. Sweden's reforms signify a break with progressive Sweden. The present administration has welcomed the SD to the bargaining table, which means that the Sweden that stands for climate change, animal rights, refugee rights, and LGBT rights will soon disappear. Well, thank you for staying tuned. Don't forget to tell your friends and family about this video and share it with everyone. Stick around to watch more informative and interesting videos on this channel. Until next time.